My story takes place June 2016. I was living in San Antonio at the time. I lost everything at that point. My son, who was living with me, was moved to Houston with my mother and my sisters. I was fired from my job, evicted from my apartment, and before I got evicted, I actually had no running water, no lights, no nothing. The only thing I had left was my car. I was truly, truly broken, and that was time for me to change. My name is Andre Tealer. I went to the San Antonio Adult Teen Challenge campus, and this is my story. A moment that really stands out to me in my life is when I was living in Georgia. I'd moved there because I was getting into a lot of trouble. My family was tired of me. It was just a constant headache, so I took it upon myself to just disappear. And it was a couple of years before my dad came to Georgia to visit me. And when he did, he was just shocked how I looked. He took a picture with me, and I was literally like 100 pounds, soaking wet, boots and everything. He took that picture and he sent it to my stepmother, Renee, and she just said how horrible and just malnourished I looked, that they needed to take me home and bring me back to Texas. And I knew right then and there that it was God trying to deliver me and getting me out of the mess and the consequences and the choices that I was making in my life. I remember I just got out of the Navy, did my 4 years. I came home in the summertime, and it was ready. We were getting ready for a family reunion. I remember riding with my Uncle Jerry, and during the ride we were just talking, catching up, and out of nowhere he starts to tell me about Jesus and talk to me about God and his relationship with him and how we all need him in our lives. This was like one of those times where I was comfortable in my lifestyle. I was drinking, just out there in a sinful world, and I was comfortable there. So as he was trying to get me to open up and understand that God was calling me and he had a purpose for my life, I just remember saying, thanks, but no thanks, I'm good. But that was just the first time. One of the first times that he came after me. Okay, one story I remember better than anything is my grandmother. I was just in a lot of trouble, fighting with my mother in Houston at the time, and they asked me to come to San Antonio for spring break, just to kind of get out of her hair, and I went on a binge before I got there. I'd moved to harder drugs, so at this point I'm smoking crack cocaine, and I walked into my grandmother's house, high as a kite, and it was weird because when people know who you are and what you do, sometimes you get that look. And I was getting that look from some members of my family, like, really? Like, that's what you're doing? But never my grandmother. She loved me. She never, at one time, showed me that she was disappointed. She prayed for me day in and day out. She was just a devoted Christian woman. And it was her that really showed me what God was trying to tell me, that I love you. No matter what you're going through, or you feel like things are bad enough, turn to me. Alright, so now I'm back in San Antonio. I just moved back in with my dad after him and my stepmom seen my picture and brought me back home. Things were going good. I was living in a Christian household, and there was a search inside of me to find out what it really meant to be a Christian and to follow God. So I went to church, asked God to be the leader of my life, and started to move forward in that direction. And I mean, when you're first saved, it's just this indescribable feeling to where nothing can get you down. You're just in a great mood, great attitude, just willing to help any and everybody. And that's where I was. I loved being in that state, but distractions came in. First it was a girl, and it made me take my eyes off of God and what He was doing in my life. I still went to church regularly, but I wasn't reading my Bible. I wasn't really dedicating myself to living a Christian lifestyle. So it seemed like things were going good at that time, but my grandmother died, and she was very close to me, and it was hard. It was really hard, to the point where I didn't want to care anymore. And she was a huge inspiration for me. Like, when I was getting on the right track and I was reading my Bible, it was like basically her last days, and she was able to see that grandson that she prayed for day in, day out come to God. And after I lost her, I just didn't care anymore. I went back to what I knew helped me detach from reality, detach from what was going on around me. And I was, things came one after another. I ended up losing my apartment, losing my son, losing everything that I had accomplished for at that time. And in that time and in that point, I knew that I was desperate enough for a change, and that's where Adult Teen Challenge came in. Adult Teen Challenge, when I came to the program, I was desperate for a change. And when you're desperate for a change, things you take seriously. And just thinking about it now, I had no idea what it meant to be a Christian until I got into an Adult Teen Challenge. It was kind of like boot camp, which was easy for me, but this was like ultimate mega boot camp. Because they are taking you and just trying to mold you into what God is setting you up for. And it's huge. I remember getting up every morning, making my bed, praying for 30 minutes before we even got to eat, praying before we eat, praying after we eat, spending 8 hours a day just focused in the Bible and learning and trying to understand what God wants you to know, and how much He loves you, and everything that He's doing for you in this time is for you. It was huge. I thought that when I got in there, it was just to help my drug problem and help me live a clean and sober life. But Teen Challenges is something that's just completely different. It helps you deal with life-controlling issues. I remember just the transformation that I had in the program, to where after I was in it for 3 to 4 months, guys were just like, "You're different. You're different. You're not angry anymore." And I just remember talking to God every day. Every day I get up in the morning to make breakfast for the guys and just be happy about it. Okay, after I graduated Teen Challenge, I finished the last phase of the program in Brenham, and this is where I reside, and this is where I stay. I just remember this one specific moment where my boss right now, JD Young, was asking me what my plans were when I got out of Teen Challenge. I didn't, at that point, I just wanted to go back to the life that I knew. But I'm listening to my mother, and this is, she's an avid believer, and she just told me that God was telling her that I wasn't going to come back to San Antonio. So I wasn't too acceptive at the point, but knowing where I was and knowing how he had taken me this far, he just wasn't going to drop me off. So I saw it through. I'm living in Brenham right now. I'm working at Faith Mission, and I'm volunteering in my church. I'm a member of the church. I've never been able to say that. I wear that kind of like a badge of honor. It's just cool to be affiliated with the church who's on fire for God, who loves God. And right now, I just know that he is building me up for something bigger and something better. So where I stand with God right now is just doing what he asked of me. And I want to just grow and become a minister, go on a mission trip to where I can tell people about Jesus and the things that he's done in my life, and the things that he's done in people's lives around me and their testimonies. That's just what I want. I want God to be able to get the glory from all of this.